First of all, Lawrence has confirmed that we've got a quorum here, so we can have an AGM. I need to, first of all, welcome you all. Thank you for attending. I recognise some faces from last year and previous year in the audience. I think you all know the board, but it would probably still be appropriate for them to introduce themselves. There's certainly one new member on the board this year, so first of all, Carol.
Carol Regan, and the trader coordinator for the show.
Gareth Jones, I'm SMT editor.
I think I'm the new member. My name's Alan Finch and I'm Director Without Portfolio.
Mike Riley, Company Secretary. Mark Rennie, Technical Director.
Colin Sloan, Treasurer.
Lawrence Smith, Show Director, Layout Coordinator, as of this year, Price Draw Person.
I'm Sue Bradley, I'm Bulletin Editor.
And Brian is presumably still doing his demonstrations, and so we'll join him in due course. Richard's a member of the board. Richard Huss is an officer rather than a director, but he is currently writing out the certificates for the Model of the Year competition. And Rod, of course, is behind the camera over here. He's an officer again rather than a director, but in every other sense a fully fledged member of the board. And I'm Alan Regan, I'm Membership Secretary and I'm Chairman. Okay, so other reminders. First of all, there is an induction loop around the seating area. You've probably seen it taped to the floor. If anybody needs to make use of that, I hope you find it useful. We've put it down again this year. I don't think we got any specific feedback last year on whether it was useful, but Simon agreed to put it in. Simon certainly finds it useful, and it's something I think we'll keep doing in years to come. Second thing, as you see, the AGM has been videoed and recorded. That means anything that you say will appear on that video. I guess if anybody's uncomfortable with that, then you just need to be aware of the fact that we won't edit these things out. We will reproduce the video as it's taken. Mike, was there one other thing that I need to mention, or have I got them both?
Voting papers.
Voting papers. You should all have been issued with voting papers. If anybody hasn't and is a member and wishes to vote, just verify your membership status now. No hands? Okay, we'll carry on then. Right, welcome to the annual general meeting at the start of the 40th year of the association. So the agenda, pretty much as has been already announced in the annual report. That's pretty much a straight lift from it. I won't go through it line by line, there shouldn't be any surprises in there. First of all, have we got any apologies for absence, Mike?
No.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the next item, which is highlights, which is again something I put together based partly on what was in the annual report and some things I've added myself. Membership increased again. It didn't increase by some of the large numbers that we've seen in previous years. I think I've said, if not at board level, not at AGM level, I've certainly said it at board level, there's a glass ceiling somewhere, and my own feeling is that we're approaching that ceiling, so we're probably going to sit around 4,500 members for some time to come. My view is, I think the board's view is, that's a good number. It enables us to spread our costs across a lot of members. I guess the expectation I'm setting is if we see it fluctuate around those levels for the next piece of time, we're comfortable with that. I hope you're all comfortable with that. National Guard Railway Show, unbelievably, there's been a 9% year-on-year increase. So we talked about last year a 9% increase in footfall in the previous year when we measured 2016 against 2015, there was again a 9% increase in footfall. So 2 years where we've seen a significant increase. I think a lot of organisations would be quite pleased to see their national show attract another 9 or 10% each year. Another big change, not everybody has access to the internet, I recognise that, but there's been a really significant refresh to the website, which was in the hands of Richard Huss. That in part drove a significant increase in web traffic. I think 60%, 61% I've quoted up there. Some of that was to come and look at what had been created new, and some of that is because what had been created new was drawing new people to it. So it's completely consistent with the show site, and we think it's a real change for the good. More my area as membership, we streamlined and we simplified the online renewal process. There was some criticism of the one that we used the first year with Warners. Too many clicks, too much information to provide. This year, back very close to what we used in the past. 2 or 3, 4 clicks until you got to a payment screen, and we will simplify that still further next year. Our hope is that you won't even have to put your address in. So all of that will just be pre-filled for you. You'll verify it and go straight to payment. We continued with our greater participation in exhibitions. We went to Whalley again. We didn't see the same level of recruitment at Whalley as we had done in previous years. And partly for that reason, and partly because it is so expensive to go to Whalley, we will not be going to Whalley this year. It's a conscious decision. It's quite time consuming for the board. We're there for 2 days, and so we've got different teams on different days. There's the travel, there's the parking, and so on and so forth, quite apart from the cost of the stand. And the cost of the stands at Whalley are a damn sight more expensive than the cost of the stands here. I would like to think have consolidated our membership management via Warners. The feedback I'm getting is it's a lot better, that the people on the phone are very helpful. People seem to like the fact that they can use the phone for renewal. A minority do, but those that use it like it. And I'm every month checking the data that they're managing on our behalf to make sure it remains accurate. The number of errors that I'm detecting are getting smaller and smaller. They arise partly because people can input data themselves. In the past it was always me that input the data, so I used to correct it on the way. And the other thing is the people who are taking the subscriptions are getting more and more familiar with our process and therefore doing it correctly. Thank you, Ron. And finally, we had to increase subscription fees by a modest £1. I think it was 9 years since the last increase in full member subscriptions. And as we explained in the, as I explained in my membership piece, it was driven by a couple of things completely outside of our hands. Cost of postage, which is fuel oriented, which is dollar oriented, and also cost of paper, which is euro oriented, and the significant event in the middle of last year has affected the exchange rate, and it's something we're just going to have to live with. So, highlights for the year. I don't think I've missed anything significant off. So I'll move to the figures. Now, this again is a straight lift from what's in the annual report. So I'm not going to go through each figure line by line. I'm going to hop forward a couple of slides and talk about why we had to restate the accounts for the previous year, and then talk about some significant items, if you like, in the accounts for this year. So that was the P&L. And that was the balance sheet, and again, they are exactly what is in the annual report that was distributed in February SMT. So why did we restate, or why did we have to restate the accounts? We received income for this year's show last year. We start invoicing traders who are going to come to the show in the latter part of any given year. Most of them pay in that year, some don't. So any income that those traders provide us with applies to something that will happen, something that will be delivered in a future year, and so therefore should not be included in the accounts for the year in which the money was actually paid to the association. The same occurs with expense. There will be some expense that we incur in one year that applies to an activity that takes place in the previous year. All of this is around the show, by the way. The bulk of it is around the show. A small part of it is also around subscriptions, because our subscription year, crossing over a year, means we recognise 5/6 of the subscription in the year that it's paid, and 1/6 of the subscription gets recognised in the future year. Anyway, that accounting was not done properly. We missed it, our accountants missed it, it was picked up this year, and the proper thing to do is to adjust the accounts for the year in which the error occurred, which is what we've done. So the net result of that was the loss that we reported last year was not as big as it would otherwise have been. It was 12.8k, should have been 9.1k, and so that difference is applied to this year's accounts. So had we not done that, this year would have shown an even bigger surplus than it does. As it is now, it shows the right surplus, and it shows a modest surplus, which, as I've said in the past, is what we're aiming to do. We're trying to run the association and generate a modest surplus each year so that we can legitimately say, well, what you pay in subscriptions basically is what it costs to keep the association going. So some comments on the accounts. Turnover increased because we've got more members paying more subscriptions. We'll see it increase, or I expect we'll see it increase this year, for no better reason than we've put the subscriptions up by £1 per subscription type. Cost of sales was down because in 2016 we didn't provide any additional publication. Remember, we did in 2015, provided the FR guide. And we plan to again this year provide an additional publication. So that's why cost of sales went down 2016 on 2015. Cost of sales will go up in 2017 because we're proposing to deliver an additional guide. So it's going to fluctuate, and it's because of the fact that we're trying to deliver more value back to members. Administrative expense was up for a variety of reasons. Colin went through a major exercise last year identifying and categorising our assets, and that made a difference to asset depreciation. Most of this was computer, and unlike some associations, we make a point of giving officers and directors the IT hardware that they need to do the job. So my PC is an association device. I think it's now a little over a year old. Carol's is, Colin's is, and so on and so forth. And you know, they cost money, we depreciate them over a period of time. They aren't the only assets we've got, we also have to pay for software as well. The other thing we've done is we've invested in software licenses that make it easier for us as a board to share information. Make it easier for us to have one copy of the file so that it's the absolute record instead of umpteen local copies of the file which may or may not be accurate. And those things have driven administrative expense, but as you've seen from the accounts, not to a massive degree. So the result is a small profit for 2016. We're probably reporting a small loss for 2017. It really depends on how the show goes this year, because what tends to happen is the surplus that we've made from the show in the past was contributed towards offsetting any loss that we might have incurred because we did, for example, publish an extra publication. But my expectation still is we'll be reporting a small loss next year. And part of that, as I've said on the slide, is the history which John Wenlock is preparing, which we anticipate is going to be distributed towards the end of this year. So, are there any questions on the accounts before we move to resolutions?
Just on membership numbers,
Yeah.
how do we compare to, say, the G-Scale Society and other societies? Are we bigger on par, or don't we know?
We're a lot bigger than G-Scale, and we're somewhat bigger than GIMRA. I'm a member of GIMRA, and there's some other GIMRA members in the audience. We're probably approaching a couple of thousand bigger than GIMRA. In terms of G-Scale, we're probably 3,000 or more bigger. So we're the biggest of what you might call the garden railway scales.
Thank you.
Yes?
Can I just ask the Treasurer, there's quite a big increase in the debtors from 2015 restate to 2016. Is that known about? I mean, what's driven that?
I have two slides on debtors and creditors,
Thank
so, well, I can remember how to do it.
whilst Alan's just looking for that, if you could please wait till a microphone comes to you, because if anyone's using the induction loop, it has to have the microphone to work. So just to make sure everything's okay for people who might be using the induction loop.
Okay, debtors. So there's a breakdown there of the debtors. I don't know whether, Colin, you want to speak any more to that, but basically some of that refers to what I've already talked about in terms of the show. So venue costs, we pay 2/3, roughly speaking, of the cost of the venue in the year prior to the show. We buy many of the draw prizes in the year before the draw takes place. We accrue a certain amount of subscription income from one year to the next because of what I described earlier, the membership year flows over into January and February of the following year. And a certain amount of printing is done supporting the national show, which again occurs in the year prior to the show. In terms of the other items on that list, have you got any questions about them? Seeing as I'm there as well, if we look at the creditors, then again, we don't get the bill for subscription management from Warners until the year, until January, so that pertains to the December charges. We've also got stand income in advance, so as I mentioned, many of our traders will have paid for the stand in one year, whereas the show's delivered in the next. The same applies to adverts. We get income from adverts in one year, which we should really apply to a service that's delivered in the next, and so on and so forth. Okay. Any other questions on the accounts then? Okay, so the resolution is that the report of the directors and the annual accounts for the year to 31st December 2016 with the balance sheet as at that date is accepted. I need a proposer and a seconder, please, and I will need your membership number. Yep.
Mike Docker, 3552.
And a seconder, please.
Chris Riley, 6141.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, and could I have a show of hands in favour, please? Okay. Are there any against? And I think we can consider that passed unanimously. Okay, Mike?
Just to mention, there were 11 postal votes, all in favour.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Okay, the second resolution is for directors. So we need to re-elect Carol. She stood down for a short time. There was a potential change to membership of the board in the summer, and we've changed, by the way, the process that we follow now when people join the board. So the person joined and then after a couple of weeks decided actually it wasn't going to be for them and kind of gave backward, by which time Carol had stood down and Mike had very efficiently deregistered her at company's house. So we co-opted her back again. We thought she'd got away and now we have to re-elect her. So I need proposer.
You can be too efficient.
Yeah, I need a proposer and a seconder for Carol to remain as a director and she'll continue in post as trade liaison. I think we've got Mr. Rhodes, David Rhodes at the back, and I think he's unique enough that we can find his membership number.
1213.
1213. And Dave George.
4251.
4251. Okay, in favour, please? Are there any against? Oh dear. However, I have to say, the traders will be, I know you're my wife, but the traders really appreciate what you did. In fact, one of them gave her a present today. It was 2 gin and tonics in a can.
With a picture of Paul.
With a picture of Poldark on the front, so I don't know what she's been saying this week. But okay, and the next one is a resolution that Alan Finch, having stood down, again Alan was co-opted in the middle of the year, be elected as a director, so I need a proposer and seconder for that, please. Does anybody want to propose that Alan Finch be a director? You can propose it again, Matt Docker.
Yeah, 3552.
Yeah. And the seconder for that is?
Alan Denny,
Alan.
6868.
Alan Denny, 6868. Okay, in favour, please? And any against? Well, welcome back to the board, Alan. Alan is the person who's organised the landmarks display this year. And the charter trains. And I've only seen the landmarks display from a distance, but it looks pretty full.
Yes.
Okay, then I'll move on to a couple of other things before I think we can bring the formal AGM to a close. So, 40 years of the association. We've got the biggest prize draw ever. We've got biggest in terms of value, certainly. Not necessarily biggest in terms of number of prizes, but what we asked the prize draw team to do is make sure that everything that was in the draw was there on the day, and we also asked them to make sure that everything that was in the draw would attract people to buy draw tickets, and certainly in advance we'd sold a significant number of draw tickets, which suggests that that approach has been welcomed. Exactly how big it will be next year is something the board needs to discuss, but if it's sustainable, we'd like to see, we'd like to be able to do the same kind of thing again. If you haven't bought your tickets yet, you've got till 4 o'clock. Second thing, landmarks. That's been built using custom staging, which now becomes an association asset. And I think the critical thing there is we wanted to make sure that the association could have free access to that as and when it chose. We spent a fair amount of money on it. I guess the bill for it's approaching £1,000, something like that. We've had a substantial portion of it laser cut. Interesting enough, by the same company that Roundhouse used to do laser cut wood. So anybody who got a Roundhouse garret got it delivered on a laser cut carrier. Now, that was, I found out afterwards, it was cut by the same people that cut our display stations. I should really thank, they're not here to hear this, but I should really thank Chris Holmes and Ted Robinson. They are local members, Beds Area Group members, and Northampton Area Group members for that matter. Chris really came up with the design, Ted drew it, and Chris, Ted and I fine-tuned it. We built it together. So Chris found the suppliers, sourced the materials, and I guess Ted and I did the bulk of the assembly because Chris wasn't quite as available as we were to be able to do that. He got other things he had to attend to. And Carol did a lot of the varnishing. She did nearly all the varnishing. That staging, when it's not in use, is going to be in the container in Peterborough, so it's on-site, readily accessible. We've used 4 of the units in member to member. I think they found that useful, and the other 6 units we've used on landmarks. We can mix and match that in years to come. So again, they're not here to hear it, but Chris and Ted, thanks. The association should thank them because they did a great job. John's doing the history of the association. Planned publication towards the end of the year. He's now started laying that out. Gareth's going to work with him to make sure that the same kind of house style is applied to that as applied to SMT. The other thing about doing that is it means we've got a full digital copy of that. And one of the things that we've been doing is working with our colleagues in Huddersfield Railway Modellers so that we tend to provide more original digital content via HRM in the future. Roger's sat in the audience and knows all about that. But basically, the way that we produce the magazines now means we can convert them into indexable, searchable digital copy relatively quickly, and the ones that were produced in the past with a bit more effort we can do, and the ones that we don't have digital copy for, Mike's found a company that can digitise those. So it's going to be work that goes on this year, and we'll work with HRM to make that available to members. I've got to say, this will not be a free service, but it will be we like to think, a competitively priced service. Charter trains. We've chartered a couple of trains on the Talith Linn and a train on the Welsh Pool. The TR's on Saturday, the Welsh Pool's on Saturday 10th of June, the Welsh Pool's on the 11th. They are priced at £5 per person. You don't have to be a member to travel, but you have to be a member to book the tickets. And booking the tickets gives you access to entry to a draw to get onto the footplate. We don't give footplate, well, as you know, I'm a fireman on the Welsh Pool, we don't give footplate rides out like toffees. And a driver experience is a costly activity on the Welsh Pool. I mentioned it's a costly activity on the TR as well. So if you haven't subscribed to them yet, then you've still got time to do so. You certainly won't be able to ride for those kind of figures on any of those railways, either of those railways or any of the other preserved railways this year, I suspect. So I hope you come along and join it.
And the draw is here.
And the draw is here for the footplate passes today. Thank you, Rob. So some of the things that we've planned for this year. And finally, not exactly because we're celebrating 40 years, but prompted, I think, by something that got raised in the AGM last year, Rod has created a sticker sheet. So these will be plastic, self-adhesive, go on your toolbox, go wherever you want to put them, basically. But it was a request from one of the members, and all you'll need to do is cut them out with a sharp craft knife. More copies will be available. Exactly how we'll make them available is yet to be determined. But we are getting additional copies printed. We will be distributing each member with one of those in the May edition of the magazine, and then whatever channel we use to supply copies, we'll bring that online at or around the same time. Hope you like it. Okay, so finally on to any other business. And the first one is the award of giant coupling gear. I've kind of kept the ball in the dark about this, because normally I consult, ask them whether they think that my suggestions are reasonable, and this time I haven't. And certainly Brian asked me who it was, and I said, you'll find out today, mate. Well, unusually, I've decided to award it to two officers of the association. One of them's busy, he's on Motti filling in certificates. And the reason I want to award it to Richard is because I think he's done such a sterling job with setting up the association shop so that you can go and buy your pre-entry tickets to the show, you can go and buy your anniversary tickets, and he's designed it so that it can be used for other stuff in the future. He did a great job with the website against a background of full-time work. He doesn't know about this. He'd be incredibly embarrassed if he was in the audience at the moment, so we'll go away and talk to him about it afterwards. But I'm awarding it joint because there's another person who puts in hours and hours and hours for the association and comes up with some really good ideas, puts in a lot of personal time going to shows. It's that guy there behind the camera. He really puts in and has done for many years.
I haven't brought a hacksaw. How are we going to...
So we're going to have a discussion afterwards about who takes it home first, but basically I'm awarding it jointly, and my assumption and expectation is you'll have it on your mantelpiece for half the year, and Richard can have it on his mantelpiece for the other half of the year. I know it's unusual, but I couldn't I couldn't really recognise one without the other because we both make significant contributions this year and in the past. So the award winners this year are Richard Huss and Bob Nipper, and I think they deserve it. Right, second thing to say is the prize draw team is stepping down. So that's principally Bob Mutiny and Shields and Nigel Town. They have organised the prize draw, and behind them, particularly in the case of Ian and Bob, their wives as well, or wives and partners, and then there's a small team behind them. I think there's, 10 of them there or something like that today. They've done a great job over many years, and I think they've guided us in terms of what prizes work and what prizes work less well, and how we should be spending the funds. As Lawrence said, he's now selecting the prizes, and he tells me that he's already a couple of them need picking up today. That's for next year.
I've got 2 in the car already.
He's got 2 in the car already.
And I've got a third one coming soon.
And a third one coming soon. So Lawrence has agreed to, has offered actually, to do that, and we'll need to build a new draw team around him. So if anybody feels that they're able to contribute to that, then Lawrence is the person to go to. I expect we'll be doing it in pretty much the same way, and what Bob has already offered to do is spend time with whoever takes this on, so that we know how he thinks it's best done, things that we can learn from him and from the others. But I think I'd like to also recognise the draw team. Have done a great job, and okay, and finally then, items from the floor. Any items from the floor? Goodness.
I've got one.
One, Mike. Come on, Mike.
Has to be, doesn't it?
There has to be, that's fine.
I was on the bus to the second shift today, and I had a comment from a member, basically to say that there's a bus timed at 11:15 departure from Peterborough, and a train gets in from London at 11:15, and was there any way that the timetable could be reviewed? Personally, I think you're always going to miss one, but against that, London is probably one of the major routes in, and whether it's worth looking at.
Well, I've seen Mike capturing that. As you may remember, we all have a meeting first thing tomorrow morning to talk about learning points from today, so we'll take that into that meeting, Mike. Okay, done, thank you. Okay, then there's a hand up over there.
Tim Stephen, just to say that I think I've heard that the insurance position vis-à-vis the model engineers insurance is much improved, and that's a great relief. So whoever's helped that along, I think deserves congratulations. If I'm right. Over to you.
Insurance, have we consciously made any?
Talking about boiler testing.
Oh, boiler testing. Boiler testing, right. I can talk about that a little bit, and there's another person in the audience who could talk about it a lot as well. The association has been working with GIMRA, Mr. Bucklich over there, and another member of GIMRA, Fred Roberts, Fred's an association member as well. Mark and I have represented the association, and we were invited initially to go to MELG meetings on a non-voting basis, and we were invited most recently to join MELG, both of us, on a full voting basis. So both associations are now full members of Model Engineering Liaison Group. We were asked by MELG before we became full voting members if we would like to work together to draw up a test code for small boilers and for small gas tanks. We've done that, we've submitted it to MELG, we've been asked to make a small number of changes, and the changes are more about aligning the wording in our code to the wording that's in the existing MELG code for the bigger boilers. And that work's been on hold, if I'm honest, because we've all been focused on the show, and it will get back underway next week or the week after. we next go to MELG early in June, and we'll make sure that we've provided them with a copy of our revised draft so that we can go through that at the meeting. I think it's fair to say that we expect it closely to be scrutinised, particularly by one of the representatives there. Not that he's hostile to it, he's just a guy that scrutinises things really closely. And it won't surprise me if there are then some more changes to be made, but I think all of us on MELG want to see this completed this year so that a new copy and a new colour of the book can be released. It'll have 3 chapters in it, essentially. A chapter for big boilers, a chapter for small boilers, and a chapter for small tanks. So I wouldn't like to say that we've got this put to bed, but I think it's good that we've got seats at the top table to push our case. We're trying to make sure that it's no more onerous than the code, than what the association recommends at the moment. But let's see where we get to. And I think I should also say the lion's share of the early part of the work was done by Keith. And since then, I think he's allowed me to grovel in his document and make certain changes to it. But certainly, the real groundwork was done by Keith. And I think, Keith, you picked up some work that I think perhaps you and Nigel have done in times before. So it's an evolution of an evolution. And we'll keep you posted through SMT. All right, another question from, Keith is going to...
I really just want to add to that.
Keith, microphone.
Thank you. I really just want to add to that. I think really until we actually got involved with the Model Engineers Liaison, we hadn't realised the numbers. We're talking 20,000 small boilers a year. They're thinking in terms of 3 or 4 dozen. And secondly, of course, no members working in their own, running in their own garden can do what they like. The code is not, this is what you must do. What we're trying to get across to people is that this is a good idea to do for your own benefit and your friends' benefit, not because the law says anything. Some things are a good idea. It's a bit like you don't use your mobile phone when you're driving. That's the problems with it. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, Mark wants to, you finish your microphone. What's coming at you?
Is this working? Okay, cool. Yes, I'd just like to put on record, thanks from the board for Alan in his work with the small boiler test code, and thanks to Keith with his work in the small boiler test code as well. If it wasn't for Keith and it wasn't for Alan, we wouldn't be where we are today with the good relationship I think we've got with the MELG. So I'd like to put that on record. Thank you very much for the period.
All right, one final item. Brian, as you know, is without portfolio as well. He, start passing the microphone down to him, please. He is now the person that answers any questions that get posted to the association. He's got a few things he wants to share with you, but he'll keep it brief because he knows he's keeping you from the rest of the show.
He's keeping me from getting the price for the draw finished as well. Incidentally, that's coming on quite well. The loco's in its first coat of paint. One wagon's finished, the other one isn't started, but it's only a 10-minute job. Fortunately. Right, well, when I took this on, I didn't know quite what I was going to get. One of the first queries was a member in Portugal who wanted advice and ideas and things like that. So I pointed him in the direction of our email group, Facebook group, because when you're working on your own 500 miles from the nearest member, you need to get your inspiration from somewhere. We've had a lot of queries about memberships which have got either passed to Alan or to Warners. Out of interest is Catherine Waddington's father in the audience. No, he isn't. Okay. I got an email from Catherine in November saying I want to buy my father a Garden Railway Show ticket for Christmas. How do I go about it? So I said, well, the tickets aren't going to be out till January, February. Do him a gift certificate, which I thought was a good idea, and I'll give you a gentle nudge when the tickets go live online. So I did, and it worked, hopefully. What else have we got? How do I form a new area group based around the meeting point between France, Switzerland and Germany? The simple answer, put it in the bulletin. One gentleman said, I'm trying to renew and I can't. He was at home, so I rang him up and I did the help desk bit, right, click on that, click, and got him sorted. And he actually popped by to say thank you today, which was rather nice. We have had a query from Japan. What's Alan's email address? Sorted that. Techie LR engineering off the website, we sorted that. Some DVDs faulty. We know about that, I think. What else? Oh yes, early entry to the show through advanced ticket holders. Sorry, we're still setting up at 9:59, so I didn't think we could do that one. There was a child protection issue which has now been sorted. And finally, oh yes, we had one person saying I want to put something in my will to make sure that my assets are disposed of properly when I die. So I had a word with Mike Riley on that one, and we've got that one sorted. And finally, can I bring my gorgeous West Highland Terrier to the show? My answer was, I'm afraid that the rule is assistance dogs only, so unless your West Highland Terrier detects when your husband or yourself are going to spend vast amounts of money on a garden railway, I'm afraid you won't be allowed in.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, so you'll be pleased to know that the formal AGM is now closed. There isn't anything else that we want to talk about. If there's anything else that you want to talk about informally, we'll hang around for a little while, but if there isn't, then let's all go and enjoy the show. Thank you very much.